Have you been wondering about this? How do I help my anxious kid? Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Jenkins.
And I'm Jody Moore. And by the end of this video, you're gonna know what to do or say when you have a child who's anxious.
If you've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I am a child and family psychologist. I've been in practice for over 30 years. Jody is a professional coach who works with parents all the time. And this comes up a lot, doesn't it?
A lot, yeah.
What's been your experience with anxiety specifically, Jody, as you've worked with parents?
I think it's the number one request I get right now is, can you help me with my anxiety and can you help me help my children who are anxious? So I want to begin by prefacing that anxiety can be, and this is your field of expertise, Dr. Paul, but anxiety can be a clinical, hormonal, biological issue that might require clinical treatment or medication.
I'm glad you said that, Jody, because there's a difference between the clinical diagnosis of anxiety and the human experience of anxiety, which I think is universal. I think we all get to have it. We're here today to talk about the universal, common human experience of anxiety and how we as parents can help our kids. We are not replacing medication or therapy or other interventions that are necessary when there's a more clinically diagnosable concern there. So I just wanted to clarify that up front so that we can know what we're dealing with here. And if you're wondering which kind you're dealing with, consult. Talk to some people. There's a lot of competent people that can help you to figure that out.
Yeah, I agree, Dr. Paul. There's lots of people that you can go to for help. But even before you do that, we have some things today that you can try out. So first thing I want to point out is that anxiety, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's sort of a hot word, a buzzword.
It's kind of trending, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know my kids have heard that word so much that anytime they feel uncomfortable or a little worried or nervous or stressed, they say, Mom, I have anxiety. So sometimes we all do have anxiety, like you said, but we actually experience a whole range of negative emotions. Many of them are not anxiety. Anxiety is an intense, heightened version of a negative emotion. So it's one thing I like to do is rename it for my children. It seems like you're nervous. Seems like you're a little bit stressed. Seems like you're a little bit afraid, just so that we don't label everything this big, scary A word.
Right. And there's a lot of words that you can use. This requires a little bit of awareness and some vocabulary on your part. So if you can determine whether your child is scared or worried, do you hear the difference between those two words? Do enough thinking that you can help your kids to identify some alternatives to the A word.
So oftentimes anxiety starts as a little bit softer emotion like stress, for example. But if we resist the stress, we compress it, we make it worse, or we spin in the thoughts creating it, it may escalate to anxiety.
Can I just jump in here about the psychology behind it? Because your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And your kid's brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So your brain's job is to keep you safe and to prove you right. That's a whole other video. But notice that as your brain tries to keep you safe, it triggers reactions in your body that actually prepare your body to do one of two things: to fight or run away. You've heard of the fight or flight response? So Jody, as you're talking about stress, it's our body's natural response to a perceived threat or danger. And so we start to feel these feelings.
Yeah. So a really good strategy is to try to keep either yourself or your child in that primary emotion. If it's starting as stress, I like to say to my kids, it seems like you're stressed. Let's talk about stress for a minute. Stress is a way that our brains and bodies try to help us focus on what's really important and filter out anything that doesn't really matter. The truth is, according to current research, stress is not actually bad for us. Stress helps us in many ways. What's bad for us is resisting stress pushing away stress,
Yes.
or wishing that we weren't stressed.
You know, the research is really clear on this particular point. It's the avoidance that causes the exacerbation or the magnification of what's actually going on with the stress. So you're exactly right. We
Yeah.
need to be able to face it. Jody, I think we should give some really practical things that we can do to help our kids with anxiety. Before we get to that, I want you to think for just a minute about that person you know who came to your mind as we're having this conversation, because you've talked to other parents who are worried about their kids and how to help them with stress and anxiety. Will you please click that share button right here so that they can have the same information that you're getting right here? Jody, where do we start as we're trying to help our kids with this from a practical standpoint?
Yeah, so I'm going to give a couple of examples because the way I talk to my younger kids, my 6-year-old, for example, is different than the way I talk to my 17-year-old son
Absolutely.
about it. But in either case, what we're trying to do is help our children learn how to allow and feel emotions because,
Yes.
like you said, it's the human experience. There's actually nothing wrong when we have anxiety or stress unless, like we said, it is a clinical issue. So I like to say to my kids, okay, so it seems like you're feeling stressed right now. And then the next thing I do is help them find it in their bodies. I say, what does it feel like? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your chest? Is it in your throat?
And usually they can describe it.
Well-
When you cue them in that way, they'll start to pay attention to
Yes.
where they're experiencing that.
Now, I will say that most of the time, whether it's, again, my 6-year-old or my 17-year-old, they say to me, I don't know. But that's okay.
Number one answer. Yep.
It's okay if your child says that. What you're doing still is redirecting them away from thinking this is a problem into going into their bodies. And then I just help
Yes.
guide them. I say, well, when I'm stressed or when I'm anxious, it feels like a heaviness on my chest. Or when I'm afraid, I feel a queasiness in my stomach. Do you feel that? And then they'll pause and they'll say yes or no, or they might tell me now a different sensation that they're feeling.
Either way, you're getting them to focus in on the physiology, on the bodily experience of what it is that they have. Because one of the interventions we can do here has to do with controlling your body in a very specific way. Breathing.
Breathing is so important. I'm so glad you brought that up. I do always remind my kids when I'm trying to help them process emotion to breathe, especially a younger child who might be in a heightened or panicked state, or even an
Yes.
older child. I'll say to them, let's take deep breaths. And I remember so many times with my little kids doing it with them. I'd go breathe in and breathe out. And this is important for
Yeah.
us to remember too, right? When we're processing emotion, breathing, thinking about relaxing your muscles. I'll tell them, relax your shoulders, relax your face, relax your arms.
Shake it off.
Relaxing, breathing, and allowing the emotion. Tell me if you find this to be true, Dr. Paul, but our bodies know what to do. They know how to process the chemicals and
Yeah.
hormones if we just breathe and relax and allow our bodies to go to work on it.
Here's another little tool that I've found for this, and it works really well for especially younger kids because they have some experience with this. And the way I guide them through the breathing is, okay, smell the flowers. And that's in through the nose, okay? And then you hold just briefly. Now blow out the candles. Like when they're blowing out candles on a birthday cake.
That's good.
Little kids can relate to this, and it gets them to breathe in through the nose nice and deep, right? Smell the flowers. In fact, try this. Just try it, okay? Humor me. Now blow out the candles. And notice what that does to you, okay, when you try it. If we can get our kids to practice this, what it does is physiologically just kind of switches that for them. They're in that fight or flight mode, but the breathing helps to just switch that over so that it redirects the blood flow back up to the prefrontal part of their brain, and that's the part that can do the thinking.
All right, so as I help my children breathe and relax and feel the feelings, I say things like, it's okay to be stressed. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be anxious. I get anxious too
Yeah.
sometimes. So we really want to normalize it and validate, even before we try to figure out what they're stressed about and address that this is a normal, natural part of being a human. When we pathologize negative emotions it teaches everybody to resist them, which actually makes them worse. It makes them more intense.
You're right. The feelings are correct.
That's right.
Your brain is simply doing what it's designed to do. And we don't want to send a message to our children that they shouldn't feel this.
That's right.
So I love the way that you made that very clear, Jody, about how we can communicate to our kids. It's totally normal to feel this. It's okay to feel this. And they might be thinking, well, it's not fun to feel this. Yeah, that's true. But it's okay. And it's part of being a human being.
And then lastly, if the child seems open to it, if they're processing the emotions, then we can go in and talk about what is it that you're worried about? What's going on? Again, with my older kids, my teenagers, they're going to tell me their thoughts, and I'm going to offer them new thoughts to think. Like, what if everything's going to be okay? And I can understand why you think that, but also, and I might offer some additional thoughts. With my toddlers, another strategy you can try that I found to be really effective is we give that fear-based part of their brain, we assign it to an animal. And I always have my child pick the animal. So one of my kids has chosen a chipmunk as his animal. And when he gets nervous and afraid, I say, remember that chipmunk who's really nervous and he thinks everything's gonna go wrong and he's just acting up again, but we can just tell him everything's okay. We don't have to worry. And it sort of helps, I think, for younger kids, rather than focus on thoughts, to give it some kind of an object like that.
That gives them a different way to think about it. I've done some similar things with my clients in the past. And even with our own kids, Vicki and I used to do this. It might be a tiger in a cage. And if that tiger comes out, it starts causing messes.
That's
and
right.
then you get to clean up the messes. Or wild horses, or the chipmunk, or just something that they can identify with. That's a great way to turn it into something they have more control over.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jody, for sharing your brilliance here with our Live on Purpose family today. You might not be aware of this, but Jody has an amazing podcast where she's constantly sharing the kind of tools that she shared with us here today. Jody, where can people find that?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. My podcast is called Better Than Happy. You can find it on any podcast platform, really. And there's a lot of episodes there. And so what we did is we created a podcast roadmap that you can grab. It's totally free. It will tell you if you're new, start with these few episodes. We've also categorized it at certain topics. If you're looking for help on certain topics, it will make a few recommendations. So I would definitely recommend that. You can grab it at jodymoore.com/map, totally free.
Go to the URL on the screen, jodymoore.com/map, and you'll get more of this brilliance at the Better Than Happy podcast.
Thanks, Dr. Paul.